Excellent.
And Abigail, when you're ready, you can go ahead and start admitting.
Okay, working on it now.
Excellent.
I do have one person who's a number, but I'm wondering if that's their company.
Good morning. For those folks who are entering, we will get started here in a minute. We are letting folks in from the waiting room. And as soon as it looks like we have most people in, we will go ahead and get started. We have some instructions on the slide regarding Zoom. If you do have any questions, feel free to pop those into the chat feature and we will get those answered as best we can. But we will do our best to get started in a timely fashion this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Good morning, everyone. If you are just joining, we will get started here in a couple of minutes. We have a lot of people in our waiting room that we are working to get entered. Should you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat feature and we will get those answered. We will start here in just a couple minutes. Okay, seeing that we are right at just a couple minutes after 10 o'clock this morning, we will go ahead and get started. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this session. My name is Bobby Sullivan, and I am the Director of Career Development at Simpson College. For those of you who are joining via Zoom and you are seeing our slides, it is up to you whether or not you have your video turned on. I am told by my colleagues in our Information Technology Services Department that if you are having any connectivity issues, turning that video off may help, so I would encourage you to do so. We do ask that you keep your mic muted this morning. That will help to decrease any background noise that we may be picking up. There will be opportunities for you to speak if you feel comfortable, and at that point you can take yourself off of mute. A question came in this morning about whether or not this will be recorded. We will be recording this session and making it available on the Chamber website. For those of you who are on the phone, we will do our best to read these chats and these questions so you can keep up as well. A bit of background on the group who is hosting this session. This session is being hosted by the Keeping Educated Youth in Des Moines group. The acronym for that group is KEY in Des Moines. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. This group connects career services professionals from area colleges and universities with human resources and business professionals who are in the Des Moines metro. You can see the bulleted list of the colleges who participate in this group. And colleagues from the colleges, if you have not already, if you will use the chat feature to introduce yourselves, I would so appreciate that. As mentioned, I am representing from Simpson College. My colleague Lori Defoe is helping me to moderate the raise hand and chat feature, so Lori will be jumping on to say hello as well. Our friend Susie from Grandview is going to help us keep time. And on the off chance that my internet has any issues, Sarah Clayton from DMAC is going to jump in as well. So very glad to have everyone who is helping out this morning. Normally, we offer professional development sessions through this group every other month on one of the college campuses that is in the area. This is our first time using Zoom for a virtual session, so thank you for bearing with us as we use this new technology. Within the last year or so, we were moved to be housed under the Urbandale Chamber of Commerce. At the end of the session, we are going to have Tiffany from the Chamber say hello and say thank you for joining us this morning, but we so appreciate their support of our particular group. To give you some background on this session, many of us recently attended a town hall that was hosted by the National Association of Colleges and Employers regarding these very topics. And part of that town hall, they encouraged folks to be getting together to discuss these topics. So from an employer perspective, but also from a student perspective. So we thought that many of us have the same employer partners. Rather than doing this through individual colleges, why don't we collaborate and work together? So we quickly started emailing one another to see if we could get a session off of the ground. We anticipated that our typical number of participants, around 30, would join the call. And we are excited to say, yet nervous to say, that there are about 130 of you who took us up on this offer. So thank you for giving us some grace and some positivity as we navigate Zoom this morning and do our best to offer you some trends and to give each other a space to connect with one another. The outline for this morning, we are going to spend most of our time talking about the impacts of COVID-19 on summer 2020 internships. About 70 of you filled out the questionnaire that we sent. And what we saw within that was that most of the questions and most of the wonderings are having to do with internships rather than hiring. We will, however, touch on hiring a bit toward the last 20 minutes before we close and talk about next steps. Hey, Lori, before we get started, any questions or anything in the chat that we need to uncover?
We are doing great. It's so exciting to see such a great representation of so many different industries today, and we are thrilled to hear from all of you. I will be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to type any questions you may have and we can share them with the group. Bobby will also be sharing that the raise hand feature will also be monitored, so jump in and share any ideas and trends that you're seeing or ideas you'd like to share with employer partners.
Excellent. The first question that we asked on the questionnaire was whether or not you have revoked any offers that you have made to your summer 2020 interns. So those of you that responded, 56 of you chose whether or not to answer this question. And you can see that right around half have not. There are just a few that have gone ahead and canceled internship programs and have had to revoke offers, but many of you are not decided on that yet, and you may be using this roundtable and keeping up with what is happening from recommendations to decide whether or not to make that decision. For those of you who are thinking about changes to the internships that you'll be offering, here's how you responded to the particular changes that your organization has either decided or is considering. So some with no changes. There are a little over 20% that are reducing the length, mainly by delaying the start date. We're starting to see that from employers. A similar number, so closer to mid 20% range, that are moving to virtual internships for the summer. Some that are reducing the number of interns that they are having. So if they normally had 3, for example, perhaps they're moving down to just 1. And again, over half of you are undecided in this regard. One of the things that I've been wondering is whether or not it would make sense to send this same survey out here again toward the beginning of May. I'm guessing we'll see these bars change quite a bit as more employers are making decisions in this regard. But as of this morning is when I ran this graph, here's what we are seeing from around central Iowa. If you will remember, within the survey, I asked if anyone was willing to share the strategies that their company is using or the decisions that they have made. I heard back from 4 different employers who have made some decisions or have some strategies in place that are willing to share. So Tammy, Mandy, Brian, and Mandy, you will see the order there on the slide. If you are willing to kick us off to share what is happening at your companies, I would encourage you to do so. You can go ahead and take yourself off of mute when I call on you, and we'll go ahead and hear those strategies. So Tammy from Farmers Mutual Hale, if you are ready, we will start with you to hear what's happening at your organization.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little soft. Maybe volume up just a touch.
Okay. I'm trying
Perfect.
to use headphones, so. All right. Well, what we're doing so far is we have 12 interns, and we have some that are home office interns and some that are kind of what we call field interns. They're adjuster kind of internship, where they're out in the field, so to speak, looking at crops or maybe assessing damage. We're an insurance company. We're assessing damage on a property. So those were the ones we were the most concerned about, because they would be out, they'd be traveling, they'd be staying in hotels, they'd be eating out. So we reached out to them to find out how they felt about it. We want to make sure they were comfortable staying in the internship, telling them our due diligence is to try to keep this thing going. You know, right now, if we shut down for the whole month of May, we were going to start on May 26th. We would start hopefully on June 1st, if that works. We want to give them some type of an internship, whether it's reduced or whatever. We also asked if they were willing to do like a kind of a virtual remote type situation, which works better for our home office because we have testers, software developers, business intelligence analysts. A little bit easier to do that job virtually than it is the adjusting when you're out in the field. So right now, we're still planning on having it. We've also asked our interns if they would be able to extend into the school year, because if that works, that would be nice too, especially for the home office who might be able to get some credit for their internship. So we've got those questions out. We're trying to get back answers by the end of April. So I think I've covered everything. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Tammy. One of the things I really appreciated about what you are doing is you're keeping in such great communication with the students. From a college aspect, one of the things we're hearing from our students is even when things aren't decided, they still appreciate that they're being thought of and that they're part of the conversation. So just those touch points along the way, that is so very helpful. So thank you for keeping them in the loop as you are moving forward.
You bet.
Mandy from Holmes Murphy, are you willing to share what is happening at your organization?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm the talent acquisition assistant at Holmes Murphy that co-facilitates our intern program with my manager, Adriana Debuse. So she's also on the call this morning, and I'm going to let her kind of start talking about how Holmes Murphy has decided to make their decision about our intern program, and then I'll chime in as needed.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Adriana. As Mandy had noted, we have made some changes to our intern program this summer. We were slated to have 47 interns be with us this summer. Across all of our locations. We have 16 offices in 11 states, and we had made the decision about 3 weeks ago to cancel our program this summer. It was a really, really hard decision to make, and those calls were definitely not fun to make, as a lot of our interns were either returning interns for their second or third summers or had been chosen to be with us in the fall, or already from the fall. And with 100% of our workforce working remotely, it just wasn't an opportunity for us to create an experience that we were excited to have them, have that opportunity. But realistically, as Holmes Murphy being in the service industry, it gives us an opportunity to invest in our internal talent and find the capacity in our internal workforce that be tapped to us to tap into our internal workforce. So we're leveraging that as much as possible. And we're really excited to stay in touch with our interns that we were going to bring on board, and hopefully maybe bring them on in the fall or in the December timeframe for those sort of opportunities. But at this time, we unfortunately had to cancel our internship for the summer. We are looking at virtual opportunities. I know that that was a question that had come up that I think we're going to talk about later. But with the current state of the environment, we unfortunately had to cancel our internship for the summer.
Mandy, anything you would like to add before I move on?
No, I would just echo Adriana. It definitely wasn't the most fun thing to do, to make those calls. And we regret that it came to that, but definitely didn't want to. We love our intern program, so we definitely wanted it to be, we didn't want it to be a half experience of what it normally is. And we are excited to hopefully reach out to those people that we recruited in the fall, and hopefully they're still interested when we come back around.
Thank you. And thank you both for being willing to share that difficult decision. I asked you specifically to do that because I know that there are organizations that are wrestling with that. So hearing how you came to that decision and what the factors were, I know is going to help those that are on the call that are also feeling that that may be something that they have to do. So very much appreciate you sharing. Brian from Wells Fargo, if you are on the call, will you share what is happening with your organization?
Yeah, I could do that, Bobby. Everybody hear me all right? Okay. I'm using my daughter's computer, and I'm not 100% sure on all the functionality of it. I know she's done a couple Zooms, but thanks for the opportunity. My name is Brian Gilbreth. I'm a campus recruiting consultant with the university programming team at Wells Fargo. We had submitted to our operating committee some recommendations for what to do with our internship, with a couple different possibilities. They gave the approval just this week, actually, for our 800 to 1,000 interns, somewhere around there, nationwide. We are going to delay the start date. So our original start date for our interns is going to be right around June 1st. And so we've delayed our 10-week internship to a start date of July 6th, which makes it a 5-week internship. So they're still going to get some of their opportunity, allows us to play a little bit conservative or safe with kind of the shelter in place and the unique situation that we've got. During that 5 weeks, they are going to be virtual, which I don't have all the insight into exactly how that's going to play out, what technology is used and things like that. We have some task forces and teams in place to figure that out. But we are going to still maintain or honor our financial commitment. So if our interns were going to get relocation, they're still going to get relocation. Some of that money can go towards like lease break and things like that if somebody was proactive enough to put a lease together. And then they'll get paid what their hourly wage was for those 5 weeks. At the end of the 5 weeks, they'll also get a completion bonus, which is essentially the first 5 weeks that they should have worked for us, in the form of a bonus at the end. I wasn't a part of this operating committee that decided this. I'm going to guess that money was already earmarked for internships. And so this is a way for us to remain, I guess, in a positive light when it comes to conversion and things like that. So we did decide to honor all of our financial commitments to the interns, and we feel still give an opportunity, even though it might not be the full 10 weeks and in person. And that decision was one that was just recently approved. And so somebody talked about communication. That's something that we've talked about. We've got communication teams. We've got, onboarding. We've got some performance management and conversion. So there's a bunch of, it seems like an easy decision to say, let's just do half of our internship and do it virtually. But there's lots that goes into figuring out how that's going to happen. And that's where we're at right now, is now that we've made that announcement, let's figure out how we're going to do it. So, any questions for me or Wells Fargo, what we're doing? Not that I'm going to have all the answers, but anything I can answer.
I will go ahead and allow folks, whether it's for Brian, for Mandy, or Tammy so far, if you want to use that raise hand or chat feature to let Lori know that you do have a question for their specific organization, feel free to do that. And before we move on to Mandy at EY, Lori, I will ask if there's anything right away that you would like us to address. So.
Main question that I've heard so far is an employer curious for all of you what criteria or data points you're using as you're making those decisions. So if you want to even respond in the chat with any data that you use when making those decisions, I think that would be helpful. And then Mandy, as you go to share, if you would add any of those thoughts in, that would be helpful.
Brian, it looks like a question came in. Will the bonus be the same for each intern?
So within our internship program, there is some variance in what an intern gets paid. For instance, if you're a technology intern, you're probably going to make more than like a financial analyst just because of the nature of the job. So the pay will be different per intern, but it's a simple calculation of if you made $20 an hour, then you make $20 times 40 hours a week times 5 weeks, that's your payout. And it's just a simple math equation to determine what that payout is. So to answer the question, it will be different for each intern, but the amount of time they get paid will be the same.
Thank you. Let's go ahead, Mandy from EY, if you are willing to share what is happening at your organization.
Good morning. This is Mandy. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Thank you.
Great. I'm from EY. I work in the Des Moines office, but the approach I'm going to explain is true for all of the U.S. So we are switching from an 8-week internship to a 5-week internship, also starting July 6th. Our entire internship will be virtual. So the first week is going to be specific to training, but we still expect to work with our interns to work on client engagements and with our team, even though it will be virtual. We're going to be mailing them an EY laptop in order to work with during their internship. So we haven't had any interns that have declined their offer at this point due to the changes, which is good. I think that covers most of what we've changed. I'm an IT auditor in the Des Moines office, but Sarah is also on the call and she is from our talent team. Sarah, do you have anything additional to add?
Sarah, if you hear this or if you see this, go ahead and shoot us a chat or raise that hand and we'll give you that space to jump back in there, okay?
In the meantime, we also have Brian from CLA who's willing to share what they're doing with interns. Brian, if you would unmute and share your process at your company, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Brian McKibben, the principal with Clifton Larson Allen, based in the Des Moines office here. And we're very similar to Mandy in that we're basically following our national office contingency plan that our board of directors had put in place. And so that it's a 3-phased approach based on firm financials. And that dictates everything from owner pay, employee pay, all the way down into our intern program. And so unfortunately, for our tax interns that were in the middle of tax season, we did actually end that internship slightly early. And those ended March 31st. And we really did that to ensure that we had enough time and work for our existing family. We have 120 offices and 6,500 employees nationwide. And so it was kind of one of those, let's make sure that we are supporting our full-time team and making sure that we have the work that they need to do. Everything else has kind of been put on hold and is very fluid. That's everything from audit or other interns that are set to start later this year, as well as new hires. And so any new hire that was scheduled to be brought on board post March 31st all the way to July 1st has essentially been suspended. Which has been a tough conversation to have. That's everything from new grads coming out of college to individuals that are changing jobs and were planning to join the CLA family. And at this point, we aren't prepared to give them a firm date. It's still trying to evaluate, can we get back to normal or whatever that is, July 1, or do we have to extend that even farther?
Thank you for sharing. For those who are following along with that chat feature, you had noticed that Lori is giving you the opportunity that if there's anything that you would like to share, even just for those to be reading, that would be great. There were a number of questions that came into the questionnaire, and I'm hoping that these will help us to structure some conversation and allow for others to share some ideas as well. So I will click through as many of these as we have time for. We do not have specific employers that we have pegged in order to share their expertise. So this really is a space for this roundtable discussion to take that form, hoping to hear from you using that raise hand feature or that chat feature in order to share some of the brainstorming that you are doing. So this first question, for those who are considering a virtual internship and are going to have their interns who are joining during that work from home environment, what are creative ways that you are considering to make sure that your internship is still value added in that remote environment? Are there questions or ideas that companies are willing to share, even if they're not fully developed, about how to engage students from that work from home environment? Kristen, I see I have a raised hand on my screen. Are you willing to share? Kristen, I am not hearing you. On the off chance that you are speaking, double check to make sure you're not on mute. But I'll also give you some space to jump in here again.
Maddie, I see that you have your hand raised now. While Kristen is trying to figure out her volume, if you'd like to jump in, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, this is Maddie. Are you guys able to hear me?
We are, thank you.
Excellent. So I am from Co-op Financial Services in Des Moines. We have 11 interns with us this summer, and we are deciding to move forward as planned virtually. So they will all be starting on May 18th on our original date. And just like I think Mandy mentioned, we're just shipping laptops to them to get them started. But actually just yesterday afternoon, we had an intern meet and greet where we just got on a video chat like this and just gave the opportunity for all of our interns to meet each other face to face via video, ask us questions about our process, get to know each other, just to kind of give them just a little bit of reassurance that yes, we are moving forward with our internship program. What questions can we answer for you about what this remote process is going to look like? And also just trying to, again, give them kind of a casual environment to meet each other, because we did want to have a fun get together in person was the plan originally. And then once we get started with the internship program, we have already planned every other week doing some type of webinar activity where we've asked different leaders within our organization to talk to our interns about different topics, just because they will be working in that virtual at-home environment where they'll still be having that interaction with their manager and their team via phone or video, but still wanted them to feel that camaraderie with fellow interns. So doing the best we can every other week to bring them together for a learning activity. So someone else in our recruiting team is going to lead a webinar about resume and interview tips, and just bringing our interns together for an hour. So doing what we can to spread those out throughout the summer, just so they have that opportunity to interact as interns.
Thank you. Lori, anybody else that you're ready?
Yeah, Mandy, if you want to jump in.
Yes. So nationally, we always have a peer advisor that's assigned to each intern. So someone around the staff level that's kind of assigned to them as a check-in point to ask questions. And then a counselor, usually around the manager level, will also be assigned to them. So we're still planning to have each intern assigned to a peer advisor and counselor. And then just locally in the Des Moines office, we've been starting virtual coffee breaks just within our team. So just maybe once or twice a week having a half hour where we just kind of break into Zoom meetings and just have a little time, not necessarily to discuss work or anything, but just touch base with people and just build that connection. So our at least Des Moines team is planning to continue those as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Kristen, would you like to?
Lori cut out just a bit on my end, so I'll say that one more time. Kristen, Percival, if you are ready to share, we can't wait to hear from you.
So it states that Kristen is unmuted, but I'm not hearing her. So I assume that most others are not. We might need to move to the next question. And Kristen, if you want to type in the chat to everyone, we'd love to hear from you that way. Thank you.
The next question is, with a remote or virtual internship, how do interns stay connected to the community, specifically the office culture or the mission? And this has been touched on some with the current ideas, but if there are other ideas about how to really incorporate interns into the office culture, if it's going to be remote, we'd love to hear those. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let that question.
On a conference call yesterday.
Go ahead, Lori.
On a conference call yesterday, some employers were mentioning fun things that they're doing as well, like doing Kahoot trivia with some of their employees, or incorporating the Marco Polo app. So even if it's just fun things so that interns could experience some of the company culture that you hope to do this summer, I know that employers would love to hear all your great ideas.
In addition, I know that many employers in the area value community service and volunteerism and community engagement. We know at our college that is something that we value too. And we have had one of our student employees gather virtual ways that students can give back. So if you're looking for a service project or ways to engage your students in that regard, feel free to reach out to our college, and we're happy to share that list with you too. I am seeing coming in from the chat. Lori, do you want to share that one with us?
Yes, so we just had an employer share that they are using MS Teams tools for morning chat and exchanges through the day to connect with interns. So for those of you on the phone who are unable to read that chat idea, thank you for sharing, Janora, and please feel free for other employers to jump in on the chat and type your answers, or if you'd rather share verbally, we'd love to hear from you, and you just raise your hand and we can make sure that you're unmuted and share that way.
The next question is, for those planning a virtual internship, what materials or projects do you foresee them working on? Some additional ways to think about this: do you anticipate them doing the typical task they would normally do during the summer months? Or do you imagine that the work will be more project-based, will be have a different focus or a different spin than it otherwise might? What are folks considering or brainstorming out there?
Brian, if you would like to jump in, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so nothing. I mean, I don't think there's anything decided yet, but I just wanted to. Our situation is one where we have interns that are in, locations kind of spread out in the U.S., and so our projects in past years have been traditionally kind of virtual, anyways. Like our interns get together with the people that are in their groups once at the beginning of summer during like a summit, and then they get their project information, and then because it kind of replicates the way that we do business because lots of us aren't in the same location as people on our team. We push them to do virtual meetings or leverage their calendars and conference calls and things like that, share points and shared drives. So I only bring that up because that's kind of typically what we do, and it's probably going to be somewhat similar that way. Obviously, they won't have the engagement with the business, brick and mortar to be able to kind of dive into some of those things. But I actually think it's a good challenge for them to go through, because that's kind of the environment that we're in is a virtual environment. So from a project space, I think that it'll be good for them. I think that what they'll get out of the internship from a experiential standpoint, for us, it feels like right now it's going to have to be a lot of, I don't know if education is the right word, but I see a lot of like learning and meetings and modules and stuff like that to try and stay connected versus, if you were in a mortgage environment helping to, see how a loan is decisioned. I don't know about that. I know that early on it's been a lot of, it's going to be best we can do. And it might be a lot more educational versus instructional. So that's kind of where our heads are at.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. I'd like to read Kristen's chat notes for those of you who are on the phone and unable to see that. She was unable to connect with audio, and she wrote that they have 13 interns in the Des Moines and Sioux Falls who will be starting on May 26th. They're moving all of the development and senior leader lunches online. They're going to send welcome gifts to them with gift cards to the lunches and company swag, etc. They're having kickoff meeting with our culture council, asking each intern to wear their swag. They plan to have an activity each week and hold lunches every other week. They're also continuing to hold intern presentations at the end of the summer via video. So that's what they're doing to respond to the last question. And hopefully that gave you all an opportunity to think about other projects and things that you might be doing virtually. So feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to share with the whole group.
Great ideas coming in. This one can be for more of the chat feature, but if you have found there are any resources out there that are being particularly helpful to you as you plan, if you're willing to share those resources with the group. I know that Lori and I are following the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE, very closely. So if that resource is not already on your radar, I would recommend that one. I also know that some of the listservs that we're a part of, we're seeing that there are some webinars coming through from organizations like Intern Bridge or such that are designing trainings for employers on how to deliver virtual internships. So I would keep an eye out for those as well. But if you have attended those trainings or if you have some that are on your calendar that you think would be helpful, please put those in the chat feature so others can benefit as well. I thought this question was a good one that came in that has to do with if you do have to cancel. So if you are in the position that you're going to cancel, what are you considering offering to the students who you had already offered to? This person is saying, for sure they want to give those students a spot in next year's program, but what else? So what else might you do for the students if you are put in that difficult decision to cancel? Go ahead and raise a hand on this one if you're willing to share through audio, or enter some comments into that chat box.
Jessica, thank you for sharing the NACE resource. And we also have another website for a virtual internship guide that is on the chat. And we have someone who raised their hand. I don't know how to say the name there. So if you'd like to share, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, this is Adriana with Holmes Murphy again. Um, some of our interns that may be graduating this coming May or next year that may be looking for a full-time opportunity that may not have a chance to do an internship with us next year. We are absolutely giving them resources to connect with other insurance leaders in other areas if they're not from the Des Moines area, or if they go to Iowa State, Iowa, and are going to be relocating back to their hometown. We are writing them recommendation letters for why our program was canceled. We're definitely doing everything we can to help them out, both personally and professionally, if they're not going to be able to be a part of our internship program next year. A lot of our interns do return both year over year. But if we don't see a full-time opportunity for them to come on board with us in a full-time opportunity with Holmes Murphy in any of our offices, we're trying to connect them as much as we can with other insurance professionals, either here in Des Moines or in, for example, our Dallas office. That's our second largest location, or Denver, for example, if that's where they realistically want to be relocated to, or if that's where they're from originally. So just trying to have them make connections or have them meet those leaders in those areas to help them in the long run.
Thank you so much. Lori, other things coming in on the chat?
I shook my head no, and then I just saw that at Vermeer, they're exploring one-to-one career coaching for their HR team. They're exploring potential mentorships and other professional development opportunities that could be beneficial to those who aren't going to be with us. So they'll be looking at those individuals as their first contact point when hiring for 2021 internships.
Thank you, Dylan, for sharing. We have time for one more question related to internships. And I think this is an important one. Employers, you have all of the area career services professionals with you today. We're wondering how we can be helpful. So as you are moving toward these summer internships, and if you're considering whether or not they will be a possibility, are there ways that we can partner with you, or are there ways that we can be part of this process in supporting the students that you've hired? So feel free to share any ideas about how we can step up and make this easier for everyone.
Brian, thank you for sharing. Please feel free to jump in.
Well, I was just going to comment that it feels like what you and your peers do throughout the year, as far as being a resource for them to do video interviewing or anything along those lines, that you're kind of the first people that they go to get support on that. I think anything that you can do, either to reach out, connect, or at least just offer yourself up as a resource, because a lot of folks, if they're not canceling their internship, they're doing it virtually. And I don't know if there's, I'm assuming they'd maybe come to us with some of those questions, but I think that that's maybe a place where you can help play a role, is just how to navigate a virtual environment, what advice you'd have and things like that. Maybe that's first thing that came to my mind anyways, which seems like a fairly simple, box to check off for universities to do.
Thank you, Brian. Just as a follow-up, so you all are aware, this same time next week, we are going to be giving a session to students at area colleges, sharing some of the trends that we're learning and featuring a couple of employer panelists to share what they are doing. So we wanted to hear from you all first so that we have the right message in place to be able to send our students. So we're thinking in the same lines that communication between both of us is really going to be key.
And Bobby, I'm going to jump in and ask some of our career peers to answer the question that just came in on the chat about what we're thinking for our fall career fairs.
Wonderful. Career Services colleagues, while you are adding in notes about your fall career fairs, I will go ahead and answer a question that came in that asked, are we able to invite our interns to that student webinar, or is it too specific to your universities? I would say that it is open. We are certainly targeting our universities as they are in the Des Moines area, but that link is out there on the Urbandale Chamber of Commerce website. So if you would like students to register, we welcome them to be there and welcome the communication. Seeing that we are at 10:45, I'm going to go ahead and move us to class of 2020 hiring. But if you do have additional ideas or questions that you want to use that chat feature, please feel free to do so. Regarding class of 2020 hiring, when we asked whether or not you had revoked offers for full-time hires to new college graduates, just a very small percentage had to say yes to that difficult answer. There are some that are still undecided in that regard, but by and large, those offers are still there. And when it comes to wondering whether or not you'll be hiring a similar number of graduates, it looks like most of you are planning to hire about the same. There are some that will have to hire less, while a very small percent will be able to hire more. And then again, about over 40% are undecided. Really, this day-by-day situation is making it so we're having to make decisions as we're getting more information from the state and national guidance level. So, Lori, before I go on to questions related to hiring, is there anything from the chat that you want to make sure to say out loud for folks on the phone?
Just to summarize, the career service professionals response in the chat is that everyone is hoping for traditional events in the fall, but if need be, we are planning virtual if it needs to be incorporated. But you can look at the chat for some links and dates and things from our colleagues. Thanks.
Employers, I'm hoping you will share with one another. A question came in related to hiring. With social distancing, how are you conducting interviews? And what have you found to be most and least successful when doing so? So if you are conducting virtual interviews and you're willing to share your platform or your tips and strategies, please raise a hand or use that chat feature.
The first response is that Amanda has found phone interviews and video interviews via Microsoft Teams to be very smooth. That's from the Palmer group. Sonia is conducting interviews via Zoom. And another participant is using WebEx. So it looks like we're running the gamut for software, and no negative comments so far. So we must not have Zoom bombing issues from our participants. Brian responded lots of phone interviewing with final round on Zoom or Skype. So that seems to be the summary, but you are welcome to scroll through the chat to see the various companies using the different systems for the video interviews.
Lots of conversation and recommendations about those virtual interviews. Thank you all for sharing. The next question is, if you are using social media in order to connect with those college seniors who are preparing for college graduation, with which platforms are you receiving the most traffic and the most responses? So how are you reaching our students? What seems to be working when it comes to social media? Go ahead and raise a hand or again, use that chat feature like you're doing. colleagues who are in career services, if you will also give a reminder to the platform that you're using for employers to post positions, I would appreciate that as well. Amanda from Palmer Group is saying that she's seeing great movement on LinkedIn, pleasantly surprised by the number of students who are responding right away to messages. I imagine that most of us who are working in career development, if not all of us, are really pushing our students toward that platform and encouraging them to be active right now. So I would echo that LinkedIn is a great choice for our students.
Bobby, you are muted. Do you want to repeat what you just said?
Thank you, Lori. Yes, we probably have time for 1 or 2 questions more before we move to closing comments. So if there is anyone who would like to ask anything additional before we close out our hour together, please either raise a hand or go ahead and enter that question into the chat feature. A question was asked for new internship opportunities. Who do we contact at each university? And I would recommend contacting the career services or the career development offices. For those of us who are on the call, colleagues, if you are wanting to share email addresses using that chat feature, you certainly can. Otherwise, Chamber of Commerce, when we go ahead and send out the recording and the slide deck for the slides, perhaps we can remind everybody the contact information for those of us at the universities as well. So I'll say that out loud so my team can help me to remember that when we are sending out the minutes. Laura, I'm seeing that you would like to ask a question. If you are off of mute, you've got the floor.
Thank you. We have a little bit of an interesting challenge ahead of us. Is our interns that we hire are going to have hands-on patient experience with potentially interacting with COVID positive members of our community, unfortunately. And one of the things that has come up is we have some of these students' parents are reaching out to us asking for reassurance before their kids come work for us. And I'm not a parent. I have a little bit of a struggle, reassuring them that we do have proper PPE. My biggest concern is keeping these kids safe. I would like to hear from those, if you have a kid who is potentially going into healthcare, that's who we're hiring right now, is future doctors, future physicians. What's going to help reassure you that we're going to take care of your kids? That's a heavy question, but that's what I'm dealing with right now.
Thank you for opening up to the group. Those of you who are parents, especially parents of future healthcare professionals, what advice would you give? Go ahead and raise a hand or enter that chat feature.
Well, I can speak as a parent, but I don't know if I have a great answer for you, Laura. I'm guessing that with most parents, it's tough because these students are now college age and they have to make their own decisions. And if it's truly a career path that they're passionate about, I hope that parents are there to support them and encourage them. And as you mentioned, trust that you're doing the best you can to keep them safe. So I think as you're communicating with parents, if you truly just communicate as you just did with us, that you are doing everything in your power to keep their intern, their son or daughter safe. I think that's the most important thing. And you are welcome to send them to the career service office too, because we will help just communicate with parents and students alike in any way we can, because we want to be here to support you and not have you take all that burden as well.
Any other responses to Laura? Dan, I'll go ahead and read the response there for individuals who may be listening on the phone. Possible answer to parent students: we are following the guidelines from the CDC and relevant state and federal agencies. With that, I'm going to move us to our final slide and give the floor to my friend Tiffany over at the Urbandale Chamber of Commerce. I personally want to thank you for bearing with me and for being so participative during this roundtable. It's been a pleasure to be your moderator this morning. And as we close, Tiffany, a few words from the Chamber.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby, and thank you for everyone that's participating. Key in Des Moines has been a fantastic group for us to work with to help with situations just like this. I have entered in your contact information, so future key events, if you're interested in receiving that information, we can certainly share that with you. Hopefully we'll be back to some sort of a new normal sooner than later, but just a thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. We will be in touch with, we'll be putting this contact information and all of the information on the Urbandale Chamber website. It'll be in the Key in Des Moines section on our site, as well as COVID-19. So thank you again for your time. And with that, Bobby, I think we're concluded.
Tiffany, can we ask you one quick question that came in? Where specifically, other than your emails, can individuals be watching for future key events?
Sure, just the Chamber website, which is uniquelyurbandale.com. There is an area for folks to sign up to receive that email when events and things like that happen.
Excellent. Thank you all for attending. Please take good care. You and the safety of your families is most important. And so we are certainly thinking of you, and professionally as you navigate these very difficult questions that are making decisions related to your summer internships and to future hiring. Please know that the career services professionals in the area are your partners, and we are here to support you as best we can. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your Friday and a good weekend as well.